Anyway, talking about all things spooky, seems to me there are some skelly bobs rattling around in Rachel Reeves' closet. What is going on with this whole licence to rent? It sounds like a really boring version of a James Bond film, doesn't it? 007, Licence to Rent. What is going on there? Because she's like, I didn't know I needed one. Oh, I did know I needed one. Oh, the estate agent was supposed to do it. Oh, the estate agent didn't do it. Constantly the Labour Party, it's always plead innocent, I didn't know. Then the story changes to I did know, but I'm a muppet and I've forgotten someone else was supposed to do it. I mean, it hardly smacks of competence, does it? At the very least, it hardly smacks of competence. And this woman has got to be managing the economy. I'll tell you what, if I were you, I'd start protecting your assets pretty fiercely. With that budget coming up, it ain't going to be pretty. It's certainly going to impact a lot of people. But someone messaged me, actually, and said, has anyone asked the question about what type of mortgage Rachel Reeves has? Because if it's a residential mortgage, you get much better terms and you'll be making a good amount of money if you then let it out compared to having a buy-to-let mortgage. Did she? This is the next thread to pull on. Oh, look at the tapestry unravel. Has she notified her mortgage provider that it's now being rented out, or is she committing mortgage fraud? I mean, I don't know. Not accusing her of anything, but there's always more questions to ask. Why are these people so dumb? Why can't they manage their own affairs when they're supposed to be managing the country? Let's speak now to Paul Embery, trade unionist and author of Despised: Why the Modern Left Loathes the Working Class. Got an update for your next book as well, Paul. Why the Modern Left Loathes the Middle Class could be the sequel after this year's budget. Now, talk to me, first of all, about Rachel Reeves. I kind of think when it comes to her saying, I didn't know, there wasn't any ill intent here. I'm minded to actually believe that, OK? I am actually minded to give her the benefit of the doubt and go, there's just a whole load of incompetence. Oh, she's really busy. She's trying to manage the budget. When she got time to chase up on whether she needs a licence or not? Well, that's all very well. But, you know, lots of people are busy. It doesn't matter whether you've got, you know, high office of state or whether you're a bin man. Lots of people have alarms that go off early in the morning. Lots of people have kids they need to look after, can't afford nannies, don't have assistants when they go into their office or are managing their affairs. And it just strikes me that, again, it's just a level of incompetence, a lack of attention to detail, a lackadaisical approach to personal responsibility from a government that places more and more bureaucracy and onus on individuals to cross T's, dot I's, jump through hoops, pay more to the state, fill out this paperwork or face the chop.
Well, morning, Alex. I think it was a genuine oversight. I think she's telling the truth. Like you, I believe that she's telling the truth. But I think probably what is obvious has happened here is she's just passed the whole thing over to her husband to deal with. I mean, when you look at the email exchanges between the estate agency, they all seem to be with her husband. So when she says that she didn't know that she needed to get a license, I think she's telling the truth. And then obviously the emails emerged showing that her husband did know, but that he'd dealt directly with the estate agency, and presumably that information didn't filter back to her. Look, I think it is a genuine unintentional administrative oversight. I'm not saying it's not serious, but what I would say is, look, cabinet members, whether you like them or don't like them, agree with them or disagree with them, they're still human beings and they're still fallible and they still make mistakes. And while she deserves a slap on the wrist, absolutely, I think calls for her resignation are over the top.
But I totally agree with every word you're saying, that I really actually do. And like I said, all humans make mistakes. There are oversights. Unfortunately, lack of intent does not reduce culpability in law. But the thing is, this same woman, let's look at a couple of things that she said in times past. She was sort of waxing lyrical about introducing licences for landlords in her own constituency in Leeds. And like I said, I don't care whether you're the Chancellor or whether you're a shop assistant. Everybody who's out working tends to have a busy life. Lots of people are struggling. There's so much, you know, the tax system in this country is crazy. The paperwork for doing anything is absolutely insane. The party who loves putting that on everyone more than anybody else seems to be the Labour Party, especially when it comes to those who own assets and are just trying to make a bob or two, being creative and are not sort of part of the machine that automatically pays tax. And so I do think it's, you know, it's not good enough, quite frankly, because they seem to dehumanise everyone else in the world who's struggling, who now is faced with a barrage of bureaucracy. But also, this is the woman, right? When it was back in COVID, when Rishi Sunak was said he had some meeting downstairs and went down, and he goes into an office in 10 Downing Street and he's given a paper plate with a bit of cake on it, and he's like, all right, okay, because it's Boris's birthday and Carrie had organised a surprise party. And next thing, he's being slammed with a penalty. Rachel Reeves was shouting that he had to resign. This is terrible. They're not living by the rules that they make up, that everyone else has to live by. He must go, he must go, he must go. You know, this is there's two people in this game that constantly let's call for resignations. It's tedious, frankly. It's tedious.
Well, it's the hypocrisy that gets you in the end. That's the old saying, isn't it? And it was very similar with Angela Rayner. She used to make great capital out of any slip up by any Conservative MP or cabinet minister, and used to exploit it. And then obviously when she found that she was in a bit of trouble, people said, well, hold on a second, you held people to the highest, some may say unreasonably high standards when you were attacking them, when they were your political opponents. You now have to take the fall yourself. Tony Blair said something interesting a little while ago. He said the problem is with all of this sleaze business, there's a thing called the boomerang effect, where when you're in opposition, you can make great play of it. You can make great political capital out there every time a cabinet minister slips up. But you can be sure, as God made little apples, that when you get into power, something will happen at some point, probably more than one thing will happen at some point, where a cabinet member is accused of sleaze, and then you're going to have to defend them. And people will rightly say, well, hold on a second, when you were in opposition, you were calling for this person's head. And I just think we need to keep a sense of proportion of these things. Yes, cabinet members slip up sometimes. And my fear really, Alex, is when we have so much media attention on stuff like this, a media frenzy, and I'm not suggesting it's not a matter of public interest, it clearly is, but actually there are also bigger things going on in the country. You know, we've got an economy that's busted. We've got an immigration system that's absolutely broken. We've got social disintegration in our communities. So I think we need to be a little more forgiving of some of the smaller things and less forgiving of government ministers when it comes to some of the really big issues.
You make such an important point there. I am so fed up. Every time someone sneezes and a bat gets stuck in the cave or a bogey goes on their lapel, it's like, resign! Resign! For shame! And I'm like, I don't care, frankly, that Rachel Reeves didn't get this licence. I don't pigging well care if she is an idiot who didn't get round to it, if her husband's a con artist. I don't care, actually, frankly speaking. What I do care about is when she came into office, she was pointing at her predecessors going, they've left a £22 billion black hole. And then when people asked and sent FOIs and saying, right, OK, prove to us that there's this £22 billion black hole, turns out they couldn't actually demonstrate that it existed, that it wasn't of their own making, suddenly sort of granting mass public sector pay rises and giving Ed Miliband more pocket money than he frankly deserves to run his mad net zero department. But now, ahead of the budget, we learn that it's a £50 billion black hole. So she's basically, in the space of 1 year, impoverished the country to the tune of 30 billion quid. That's almost £3 billion a month Rachel Reeves is hemorrhaging from the national coffers. That's why the woman should resign, because she can't seem to add up.
Well, I mean, she said when she gave her budget last year that she was getting all of the nasty stuff out of the way there and then, to you know, get it all done in one hit, you know, the nasty taste in medicine, so that after last year's budget, everything would be much more rosy in the garden. I mean, all of the suggestions are that this year's budget is going to be equally punitive to a lot of people. And there's even suggestions, Alex, that there could be an increase in income tax. Now, I have to say that I think when you go into a general election, as the Labour Party did, and you put in your manifesto, you guarantee that there will be no increases in income tax for working people, you are then on very, very shaky ground if 2 years into your term or 18 months into your term, you then start hiking income tax. And I have to say, I think it would be electoral suicide.
Yeah.
I think if the Labour Party were to do that, there would be that they would lose they would hemorrhage votes, and I think they could kiss goodbye to any chance that they've got. Not that they have much chance at the moment as things stand of winning in the next election. I mean, I have to say, I'll probably look at the economy in a very different way to you. I don't think you can cut your way to growth. My concern is that Rachel Reeves is following too much of a George Osborne agenda in the Treasury, following Treasury orthodoxy. I think government should use its massive fiscal capacity to invest in the economy to get growth. You're only going to get growth by investing in the economy, and we can have a debate about that. But simply on the point of income tax, if that goes up, Labour has got massive problems.
I mean, at the end of the day, what makes growth is people paying taxes, contributing to the economy, is productivity, is work, is manufacturing. If they wanted to create growth, I could give a few life lessons in an easy way to do so. First of all, get rid of this idea of being able to work from home, because it's not very productive. I don't care what people say. When you look at all the evidence out there, nothing seems to be working very well, because Jeanette is sitting at home watching Real Housewives and not picking up the phone and putting a little device to her mouse moves every hour. And also cut red tape. Inspire businesses to come and invest. Maybe now she's had her own slippage when it comes to red tape, she'll actually learn a little life lesson that could be quite informative coming up to the next budget. I did hear actually that she might be, this is what I find quite ironic, she might be going after people with assets or houses worth over 2 million. And so for every £1 million over 2 million that your house is worth, you have to pay a 1% tax on that annually, which if your house is worth 3 million, you're going to have to pay 10 grand. If it's worth 4 million, 20 grand, and onwards and onwards. Now, a lot of people sitting out there in other parts of the country be like, and? Yeah, what? So? Who cares? If you happen to be a Londoner, right, you realise that you could have bought something about 15 years ago worth about £500,000, and now it could be easily worth 3 million, and it's sitting there, it's the house you're living in, and all of a sudden you've got to scare up 10 grand a year for the privilege of having it. And the reason that that has happened, the reason those houses have massively gone up in value, is because successive governments, including the Labour government, don't seem to understand that if you allow anybody from any country to access the housing market, whether it be illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, people claiming social housing, or just people from whether it be Nigeria or China buying up capital in the United Kingdom, in our big cities, because it's better in terms of returns than a Swiss bank account, you've actually created the problem that has left people with houses worth this much money.
Well, I mean, first of all, there's absolutely a housing crisis, no question about that. And I think it's reached a stage where it's a national emergency. People often slag off the 1970s, don't they, and say how terrible it all was with the winter of discontent and everything else. But I can just about remember the 1970s. And the truth is that most families were able to afford a decent standard of life on the wage of one earner. Both parents invariably were not forced to go out by reasons of financial imperative to earn, and most people had a decent house, whether it was a private property, whether it was a council house like I grew up in. You could get a decent house. You didn't have to go into substandard rented accommodation and fight over the lack of housing supply like families have to do so today. I said earlier you can't cut your way to growth. I agree with you. You can't also tax your way to growth. If you've got an economy that's busted and is trundling along the floor in terms of growth, then simply taking more money out of people's pockets, whether it's by spending cuts or whether it's by taxing them, is not going to stimulate the demand necessary to create growth. The problem is, Alex, frankly, is that Reeves has decided to lock herself into this straitjacket of the OBR. These technocrats at the OBR, as far as I can see, have got absolutely no democratic mandate whatsoever. But governments successively are so intent on appeasing the OBR, and they talk constantly about the deficit, that they don't realise, look, actually, you might actually in the short term need to increase the deficit in order to create growth and the tax revenues that you then get, which you can close your deficit with. But having locked herself into that, she now finds that she's in a bind. So next month, I have to say, is going to be pretty interesting.
Oh, it's going to be quite scary. It's Halloween today, but the ghouls are yet to come, I think. Paul, thank you ever so much. It's fantastic catching up with you as ever.